Hello, this is the Ocean Story Channel, and this is an incredible selection of stories that surprise. I am originally from Spain, and my wife Aubrey is from the United States. My parents have always been very smart about their children's names. They wanted to avoid any problems for their children in the future. From my very manhood, my dad taught me to respect the culture of our country. I know the geography and history of my country and city very well. I'd really like that I am a part of history. My dad put a lot of effort into making sure I grew up as a conscious person. I had a very good education at school and never had any problems with grades or anything like that. After school, I went on to study further, and I wasn't very happy with the prospect of staying in Spain. I decided to fly to the United States to get a great education. I met my future wife, Aubrey, during my internship. To my surprise, her parents were not permanent residents of America and came here 10 years ago from Australia. Getting to know my girlfriend's parents was quite interesting, at least because we have two categorically different cultures. I had never had to study anything about Australia. Then Aubrey and I got married and had 2 children. We were very happy to have children who would continue our family roots. Aubrey and I thought for a long time about what we would name our children. In the end, we agreed that our children would be named as I decided. I determined that our son's name would be Ismail, and we named my daughter Lucia. My wife said that these are great names for our children and they suit them. My parents were impressed that I named my children with names that are popular in Spain. As for my wife's parents, there were some difficulties. More precisely, my wife's father and his brother had problems calling my son by his first name correctly. I thought that no one would have problems with this, because the names of my children are not so difficult for most people. I think even 10-year-olds can easily pronounce the name Ishmael. But I was a little bit wrong about that. This month we visited my wife's parents' house. It was her parents' wedding anniversary, which was a good reason to visit. Our children are old enough to go with us, so we went with the kids and my wife to celebrate. We arrived at the holiday, and when all the formalities were over, Aubrey's parents came to where my family and I were sitting. My wife's father started talking to my son. He had to say the name Ishmael 6 times to get it right. My son was even a little embarrassed at this point. Worse yet, Mr. Mateo started saying in front of my son that his name was stupid and hard to pronounce. I didn't like what he said about my son at that moment. I looked at him and said that we need to discuss something. Everyone started talking to each other, and I started talking to Mateo. I told him, "Sir, my son's name is traditional for my country, and there is nothing difficult to pronounce. You just need to do a little bit of practice on the pronunciation." Mateo said, "Son, I'm not a fool. I shouldn't have to say such simple things. I understand everything myself without your advice. You just should have thought of all the people and named your son something normal, because the name Ishmael is not as easy as you think." We started a conflict that people around us could hear. The conflict became so strong that I had to take my family and go to the other side of the house. My wife started to get angry with me for this behavior. Aubrey told me to apologize to her dad for what I said to him. But when I explained why there was a fight between me and her dad, Aubrey said we didn't belong here, so we should go home. We took the kids and went to our house. This caused all the guests to be concerned and very interested in what happened between us. Of course, various rumors could not be avoided, and things got much worse. Now I can't talk to Mr. Mateo and resolve everything normally. Mateo is not really willing to talk to me either. He thinks I'm a bastard who only thinks about himself. But the whole situation could have been avoided if he had just learned to pronounce my son's name. Many relatives tried to find out what happened that evening. I'm not lying to anyone, and I told them that Mateo couldn't pronounce my son's name and started fighting with me. Mateo now says that I am spoiling his status by saying that. The situation has reached a dead end. I have no desire to have anything to do with my wife's parents now. My wife doesn't want to have anything to do with them either. Should I change my son's name to settle everything? Ellie, it's unfortunate that a simple cultural difference has led to such a violent conflict. Mr. Mateo's refusal to make the efforts to pronounce his grandson's name does not reflect well on his willingness to accept diversity and respect other cultures. So obviously to me, his reaction is very strange. I'm sure if Mateo said your son's name 10 times a week, then he was able to say it correctly over time. Naming your child is a personal decision, and it is unfortunate that Mr. Mateo chose to insult and demean the traditional name of your country. His derogatory comments were disrespectful and inappropriate, especially during a family celebration. Stella, the fact that the situation escalated to the point where we had to leave the celebration early is regrettable. This should have been a mature and respectful discussion, but Mr. Matteo's refusal to acknowledge his mispronunciation has turned a cultural exchange into an unfortunate family feud. He must have a lot of pride if Matteo allowed himself to be disrespected in front of your son. This could lead your son Ishmael with a traumatic experience. Hoping that changing your son's name is the solution is an unreasonable expectation. Names are an integral part of identity and heritage. It is unfortunate that Mr. Matteo prefers his own convenience to understanding and accepting other cultural norms. This act is definitely not in keeping with his reputation. Matteo did a bad thing and now he blames you for everything. Next story. I have been through a lot of problems since my childhood. My sister and I were adopted when I was 12, and my sister Leah was 10. Our parents left me and my sister for unknown reasons that are still unknown to me to this day. There were 2 other children in the new family besides my sister and me. We did not have a strong and warm relationship with them, but I have to admit that it was easier to get along with them than with the children who were in the orphanages. Our foster family tried to be polite to Leah and me. At school, everyone quickly learned that I came from an orphanage. Unfortunately, I couldn't avoid the ridicule. It was very difficult for me to be at school every day. Even a few times my parents thought about transferring me and Leah to homeschooling. Children from school often made fun of my appearance and said that I behaved strangely. I don't do my exercises in class the right way. I don't read as fast as they do, and there are many things that my classmates often mentioned. Several times I even ran away from school because I could not stand what was happening there. My parents could do almost nothing about it. The children from the family that took us in never tried to protect me or my sister from the taunts of their classmates. It was very annoying and upsetting for me throughout my school years. At the end of school, I even got used to being ridiculed by children. It was because I didn't have any reputation among the school children. I was not able to make friends. I spent most of my time alone and without people in my room. Later on, I became a very close person which had and still has its consequences every day. Everyone in our neighborhood knew my life story better than I did. Even when I went for a walk with my dog and there were people on the street, almost all of them had the same reaction. Someone would start looking at me as if I was carrying fried hot dogs. Some people tried to ignore me. A few times I even heard people shouting at me. As soon as I passed their neighbor's yard, they would start talking about my life. All the time I was like a center for gossip and conversations of people who knew me. Even in college, some people quickly found out information about me that I wish they didn't know. But college was much less of a problem than high school. There I was able to find almost the first friends who did not want to discuss my life and problems. Although even with them I couldn't be frank because I didn't have trust in people. Then I got the family I dreamed of. Sometimes I thought that all this would remain only my imagination. My marriage with Hazel had a lot of breakdowns because of my past. She constantly wanted to know everything about me, about all the teasing I got at school, but how coldly my half-siblings treated me. Hazel wanted to know what happened between me and my new parents. It is very difficult for me to talk about this with anyone, no matter who that person is to me. These conversations traumatize me every time I think about it, so I mostly avoid answering such questions. Hazel and I have conflicts about this. She thinks that I don't trust her and don't want to tell her anything. Her argument is always the same and weighty in her opinion, because Hazel told me almost everything about her life and problems. And because of that, Hazel makes me open my soul and my pain to her as well. But every time she tries, we end up fighting. Hazel says that I am too cold and treat her very rudely. My wife even forced my close friends to tell her everything they know. I appreciate that she cares about me, but I think she is violating my own boundaries. It doesn't matter that Hazel is my wife. This is about something else than that. That week we had a new, more global quarrel. My parents came to our house with Hazel. My wife convinced my parents to have lunch with us. They did not refuse and it was not bad. I went to the restroom and when I came back, I heard my wife asking my parents everything about my life and childhood problems. I went in and told Hazel to stop doing that. She started saying that there was nothing wrong with it. I just wanted to help you. We started fighting and my parents had to calm us down. They left the house without telling Hazel anything about me. My fight with Hazel became very strong. I have no desire to talk to Hazel because of her stupid actions. How else can I explain to my wife that I don't want to talk about my bad memories at all? Joshua, Hazel's persistent attempts to get you to reveal painful details of your past despite your obvious discomfort indicate a lack of respect for your boundaries. It is troubling that she is putting her need to know ahead of your emotional well-being. I think she's old enough to understand that when a partner asks not to ask such questions, it means that they really shouldn't be asked at every opportunity. Invading a person's personal space by forcing them to share traumatic experiences is a serious breach of trust on your wife's part. Hazel's insistence on prying into your past, even after conflicts and denials, calls into question her understanding of personal boundaries and emotional sensitivity. Christopher, instead of providing the support and understanding you need, Hazel's actions are deepening your trauma. Her pushiness and attempts to get information from your parents without your consent is not acceptable at all. You're not the only one who thinks Hazel is overstepping her bounds. Sharing personal information about your life with other people without your consent, as Hazel did with your close friends, is a clear violation of trust and privacy. Your wife, like many women, wants to know everything about their husbands, but she doesn't think much of you, and that's not a good thing for you. I think the only simple solution for the two of you is, if you go to a family therapist for a few sessions, this will address the root of the problem, not just the consequences of the problems. Next story. I lived with my dad, Dylan, until I came of age. I never got to know my own mother. She left my father and me almost immediately after I was born. Until I was 10, I was raised by my father alone. Then Dylan found a new girlfriend who could replace my birth mother. Lily is not the worst person I've ever known. However, I did not agree that she would be my mother. There was a certain barrier in my mind about it. I was also annoyed that my dad was constantly forcing me to love Lily because she was now living with us. I was equally annoyed by the children who were with Lily. They were a little older than me, about 3 and 5 years old. I couldn't get along with them, which really annoyed me. They often tried to annoy me and make me angry. My dad thought I could be friends with them, so Dylan didn't pay attention to what was going on between me and the Lely family. Whatever was going on, my dad believed that I was saying something bad on purpose, and every time I was incredibly annoyed. The thing that annoyed me the most was that Lily constantly treated me as if she were my own mother. She would tell me what to do, how to sit, where to read, and a bunch of other things. I decided for sure that a woman who constantly checks how I sit cannot be my mother. Also, son Lily often laughed that I was already so grown up and didn't have my own mother. For some time I endured it and even tried to establish some contact with them. But when Lily's children said the same thing about my mom again and again, I understood everything and there was no need to talk to them anymore. Especially when I talked to Eleanor, my stepmother's eldest daughter. She tried to make fun of me. I told her, "You are no better than me." Eleanor said, "Maybe so, but at least I have a mother." Everything changed a bit when we had to move to another house, so we could not live there anymore because of certain problems. And at that time, Lily had another child with my father. The move happened when I was just 17 years old. Sometimes I had to be with my stepmother's youngest son, Lily. I was not very happy about it because since childhood I did not like children. For me, it was a job that I couldn't get rid of if I didn't want to. My dad said that if I didn't help them with the baby, I would be fired. Then he wouldn't give me much money. In my opinion, my father did something wrong, knowing that I hate children, but I needed the money, so I had to sit with the child. My suffering ended when it was time to go to college, and I could change my living situation. When I was leaving my father's house, I was incredibly happy inside that all this ridicule from my stepmother's children would end. I was happy that now no one would tell me how I had to hold the spoon while eating. And finally, I no longer had to babysit a small child because I was constantly surrounded by screaming and the smell of baby shit. My dad even tried to convince me to stay home, but it was not out of a desire to see me. It was only because I was beneficial for him and Lily. I knew they were using me and that I needed money. Now I have nothing to do with my dad's family at all. They are technically family to me, nothing more. Things got more interesting when I received a letter at my address. It contained a will for inheritance from my mother's father. The letter contained some apologies for the fact that she could not be in my life, so she signed over most of her inheritance to me. About $100,000 was transferred to my account. With a 3-year lock on the funds, I got a small house on the outskirts of the city. Do you know what happened next? My dad suddenly realized how much he and Lily loved me. Even her children started writing me friendly letters. Dad said he really needed money now. Lily also said that their family really needed money, to which I immediately reacted very severely. I reminded them of all the bad behavior that had been committed before me. For all the time I lived with them in the house, it was the moment when fate was on my side. I was very happy to refuse them this help with my money. It was funny to me when the Lely children started asking me for money for college. They had been making fun of me almost all my childhood, and now they expected me to forget everything so easily. My dad told me on the phone that I was being unfair to him and his family in their time of need. Dylan called me very cold and rude. He said, "Son, I didn't raise you to be like this." I told him, "At what point did you even care about me? You're my dad. You left me at the mercy of my stepmother and forgot about me. So now I will forget you. And you don't even have to ask me for money. I've always been a tool for you, not a part of your family." Now my dad and Lily are telling everyone that I have no feelings, and I'm being a jerk to them in their time of need. Grayson, your stepmother Lily has consistently treated the narrator like shit, giving orders and disregarding the narrator's feelings. Your reaction is quite right. No matter what anyone says to you and proves you wrong. Dude, why do they even expect money from you? This is so absurd that it makes me laugh and nothing more. If I insult someone and make fun of them, and then I abruptly say, "Listen, I have problems, help me with them," I don't think many people would want to help me with that. Then your father was really selfish and didn't want to admit it. Levy, the stepmother's children, joined in ridiculing the narrator for not having a mother of his own, which further increased the emotional stress. This behavior further deteriorated family relationships. You really weren't a member of that family. I'm scared of the kind of parents you had. If a woman comes into the family, it does not mean that she is able to replace a mother for someone. Lily tried her best to make you into the obedient boy of her imagination, but she failed and she decided to treat you badly, and your dad hasn't even batted an eye at what's going on in your life. The best thing for you to do is to leave your dad's house and forget everything like a nightmare. Hannah, why did you decide to reject your family so easily? Oh wait, probably because they saw you as an assistant, not a family member. It's a terrible situation that happened to you. After that, a trip to the doctor will not be superfluous, because your so-called parents have created a lot of problems for you now. I hope you'll be okay and won't have any more contact with your inadequate family. And you do history. My husband is always putting everything off for later. Gabriel does this all the time, no matter what the situation. Unfortunately, this applies to everything in our family life. That's how we had a broken door on our kitchen cabinet. Gabriel said he would fix it soon and everything would be as good as new. He didn't fix the door on the cabinet for 3 weeks, until his parents came to our house. Gabriel was ashamed that I told his dad about it, so my husband finally fixed the nightstand. But the issue is not just one case. Gabriel regularly says he will do something, but these tasks are always left in place. This is often the case with our family affairs. For example, I ask him to take things to my brother's house, and this issue remains open for about a few weeks. It turns out that it's better to do it yourself than to ask Gabriel to do something. This was the case last week when I was doing our laundry at home. I asked Gabriel to take the laundry out of the washing machine and hang it up to dry. I came home, made dinner, and went to bed. In the morning, when I went to the bathroom, I saw that Gabriel had not taken the clothes out of the washing machine. Every time these situations annoy me to no end. This month we bought a new laptop for my husband's work. I could also use it, but it was mostly for my husband. We ordered a new MacBook that cost us about $2,000. We had to have it upgraded to make it safe to use. Gabriel and I ordered a special case. It had to protect it from moisture and dust during transportation. A few days later, we received our order. And you know what happened 4 days later? My husband went to the office with the laptop. I saw that the package with the case was still lying in the room where Gabriel works. The package was not even opened for several days. My husband has been walking around without a laptop case. This made me angry because the laptop can be easily damaged. When Gabriel came home, I brought it up. I didn't want the laptop to break in the first week of use. Gabriel said that I was exaggerating and that nothing bad happened because he forgot the case once. 3 days later, the whole story repeated itself. When my husband came home, I saw that there was a small scratch on the lid of the laptop. Gabriel and I had a fight about it. My husband often does not do something he promises, but this situation is going beyond that. We don't have a lot of money right now, so if the new laptop breaks, it will be difficult for us. But Gabriel probably forgets about that too, and treats our laptop so lightly. I told my friends how annoyed I am. When I asked my husband to help me with dinner, for example, Gabriel says he's going to fry the potatoes. But when I come home, he hasn't even gotten off the couch yet. And after work, I have to do all the housework on my own. Sometime later, I noticed several times that Gabriel didn't use the protection for his new laptop. So I told him that every time he takes it out, he should take a photo of the cover on the laptop. The funny thing is that my husband often forgets to do even that. It got to the point where one day my husband was walking with his laptop and got caught in a downpour. The laptop got wet and we had to go to a repair service. The repair cost almost as much as the price of a new laptop. I was incredibly angry with my husband. No amount of talking or rules can help resolve this situation. My husband said it was an accident, and it was not his fault that it was raining. However, I know very well that if the laptop was in a case, it didn't get damaged like that, and we didn't have to pay for repairs. I am tired of constantly watching my husband and his indifference to everything. Lillian, your husband is acting like a child. Gabriel's constant procrastination and failure to fulfill his promises. Whether to fix a broken door, do the housework, or protect a valuable laptop demonstrates a lack of responsibility and concern for the family's well-being. Have you ever thought about having a serious conversation with him? Because these are not just some random problems. These are regular difficulties with your husband. I know that there are men who behave very irresponsibly. Your husband is in this category right now. Addison, disregarding the importance of protecting an expensive laptop, especially after investing in a specialized case, shows a careless attitude toward financial resources. Gabriel's nonchalant reaction to the fact that the laptop got wet and needed expensive repairs shows a lack of responsibility for his actions. It's as if he doesn't care what's going on around him. Your husband has stopped thinking about you properly. Repeated patterns of Gabriel promising to help with household tasks and then neglecting them. They create an unfair burden for the narrator. This imbalance of responsibilities undermines the partnership in the relationship and forces one person to carry most of the load, which can ultimately cause problems in your family life. This is how stories like, "Son, this is why your dad and I divorced." Julian, I am very ashamed of your husband. He should think about his behavior, because Gabriel is leading your marriage into the abyss. It all starts with the little things, until you file for divorce. The next story that surprised me. My husband and I decided that it would be better for us not to be together. My mind is on my work, and I don't have much time for various family moments. My ex-wife Violet agreed that it would be good for us. However, there is a single moment in our life. Violet and I have a son of our own who is 17 years old. This summer, my son Andrew is going to turn 18. I was married to my ex for about 15 years. Our son was born before I married Violet. Now I have a lot of time to do my own thing, and that makes me happy. The same cannot be said for my son Andrew. For him, my divorce from his mom was quite painful. Even though he could see Violet and spend time with her, it still upset him a lot when Andrew found out that his mom and I were planning to divorce. My son didn't sleep or eat well. It is hard to say why he had such a reaction to what happened between me and Violet. We consulted with my ex and started going to psychotherapy together. These visits to the doctor gave a good result and my son calmed down a bit. As time went on, I didn't feel as good alone as I wanted to. A year later, I got a new girlfriend, Aurora, who was about my age. I enjoyed spending time with her. I didn't tell my son right away that I had found a new girlfriend. I had to tell him that I had a lot to do, and that's why I was working late at my job. Once I stayed overnight at my girlfriend's house. Unexpectedly for us, her son came home early. He had gone on a trip with his friend, but returned one day early. The boy saw his mother with someone else and was surprised. There was no conflict between us or anything like that. But ironically, that guy knew my son. He recognized me then and told my son about the situation. Then I had to have a difficult conversation with my son about the fact that I was hiding my new relationship from him, and that I had started dating a woman who was the mother of his friend. This was a new blow to my son. Andrew started to say that I shouldn't have left Violet. If I found a new relationship so quickly, my son did not understand why I did this to him. I tried to explain to him that I didn't have a strong desire to be with his mom again, but my son could not comprehend it at all at that moment. When Violet found out about it, she was angry with me for ruining everything again. After 2 months, we decided together with Aurora that we shouldn't be together. Our children could not accept this reality. It was quite unpleasant for me, but something had to be sacrificed at the time. My son was happy because I would no longer be seeing Aurora, and she would not be his stepmother. 3 months later, everything calmed down between us, and our new sessions with the therapist are over. I managed to find a new girlfriend. I don't know how I did it again so quickly, but as they say, you can't tell your heart who to love and when to love. I started dating Savannah when my son was 18 years old. My son went to live with his grandmother, and for a while our house was empty. One day Savannah and I stayed at my house. I thought it was not such a bad idea because my son was not at home anyway. Early in the morning I left for some business and Savannah stayed with me. The same day around noon my son came home. He was very surprised to find Savannah in the kitchen in just her underwear. They talked for a while and worked something out. When I got home, Andrew asked me to explain everything. I had to apologize to Andrew again for lying to him. My son is angry with me and doesn't want to talk to me anymore. The reason is very simple. Andrew is upset that I left Violet, even though it was a decision we made together. Actually, when Violet found out about this story, she called me a bastard who spoiled our son's psyche. I don't even know what to do now. Theodore, your lack of transparency with your son Andrew about your relationship and the decisions you made has caused him significant emotional distress. Hiding from him the fact that you were dating Aurora and later Savannah, especially when they were involved with people he knew, demonstrated a lack of respect for his feelings. And in general, it's a very strange thing to do in my opinion. Being introduced to a new partner, especially in an intimate setting, without first discussing it with his son, can be emotionally distressing. Andrew found himself in an unexpected and potentially awkward situation, which caused him even more distress and confusion. He even reacted quite calmly to what happened in your house. Caleb, dude, you're like a lion, trying to attack every girl your son knows. I don't think you're doing the right thing by doing that. If I were your son, I wouldn't want to talk to you either. Moving quickly from one relationship to the next can give the impression that you are not taking your son's emotions into account. It is important to prioritize open communication and give him the time and space he needs to process the changes in your life. The decision to leave Violet and start a new relationship has had a profound impact on your son's mental and emotional well-being. It is important to recognize the seriousness of the situation. Listen to Andrew's feelings and consider seeking additional family counseling to address underlying issues. Otherwise, you will not be able to have adequate relationships with other women.